Take a look at that beautiful face, as you might not be seeing it in the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2. Hey everyone, Andre here, and you know if there's Mario movies to be had, I'm gonna be there covering it all, as I love the first movie and I can't wait for the second. But I'm not super stoked about this news, as the website Screen Rant recently had a chance to interview the voice actor for Spike, Sebastian Maniscalco, I hope I said that right, who of course voiced Spike in the first movie, and they basically asked him if he's gonna return for the second, and he gave an interesting response to this, basically describing a trip to Universal Studios Super Nintendo World where he wanted to buy a figure or a doll of himself, of his Spike character, and he couldn't find one, and he went on to state that the fact that I didn't have a stuffed animal is not giving me a lot of confidence I'm coming back for the sequel. I haven't heard anything, so your guess is as good as mine. So yeah, it's not looking good for fans of Spike, of which I am one. Did that make sense? In any case, I do have to point out real quick before we go too much farther in this, that the coincidence of the first voice acting news of the Mario movie 2 coming from the voice actor for Spike is hilarious, given the fact that he was also the one to give us the first voice acting news for the first movie, in which he revealed his role a couple of months before it was officially announced in the Nintendo Direct, along with all the other voice actors. And I have to say, looking back at our original thumbnail, it was pretty freaking hilarious, given the fact we didn't know for sure what Spike he meant. It could have been 4-man Spike, it could have been the enemy Spike, or maybe it was even the 93 Mario movie Spike. Okay, he was probably a joke back then too. In any case, I was so happy to see that ended up being 4-man Spike, because I love the fact that it was both a reference to a classic forgotten character, maybe not classic, but a forgotten character, but also how he was incorporated into the Mario movie. And that brings us back to the possible news of Spike not being in the second Mario movie, based on, again, Sebastian not being reached out to by Illumination to reprise his role. And I want to discuss specifically 4 things that could mean. And number 1 is, strictly speaking, Spike just straight up is in the movie. That is probably the most likely outcome here, because why wouldn't you bring back the same voice actor for him if he was going to reappear in the second movie? Now, there is a second option here, and that is Spike will appear in the movie, but in an unvoiced role. However, considering how big and prominent and loud Spike was in the first movie, I find that extremely unlikely. You can't just have him as like a background character without him saying something. I mean, you can, and they could. I just don't see it likely. Why bring him back at all if you're not gonna use him in actual like important capacity, or at least a speaking role. And that brings us to option 3, which is that Spike will appear in the movie in a speaking role, but he's been recast. As in, Sebastian won't be given the voice, it's someone else. And on the one hand, hey, Spike's back, that's great. On the other hand, I love Spike's original voice. It was perfect for the character, and I can't imagine with anyone else. But that being said, I can't imagine they'd recast him. For one, I can't imagine Sebastian's having that big impact on the budget, especially compared to like Chris Pratt and Seth Rogen. So I don't imagine that's a factor. The only reason why I could think he'd been recast is if they were, punishing him essentially for licking his role in the first movie. But I don't think that's likely either. They could have just recast him then as well, although I don't know the full terms of the contract. In any case, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And that brings us to option 4, the one that I kind of hope is happening, but I don't think it is, and that's he's lying. He could be lying about this given, NDAs and all that, especially after him licking his role in the first movie. But given the context for the quote here, which is, again, kind of sad, I don't think he'd be doing that. Like, why go into that much detail about how you haven't been contacted if that is the case? Finally, there actually is a 5th option, despite what I said earlier, and that is the possibility that he just hasn't been contacted yet. Now, that does seem unlikely given how far in advance animated movies, get the voice tracks so they can animate to them, but it's always possible, because as you might recall, Charles Martinet similarly said he had not been contacted about the Mario movie, I think about a year and a half out from its release, but then suddenly, or its original release, but suddenly a few months later, when we were just a little over a year away from the movie's original release, before it was delayed, Charles Martinet suddenly had a more vague answer to whether he was in the movie or not. And so that could still possibly be the case here as well. Again, we're a year and a half out roughly from the Mario movie, a little closer than we were before with Charles Martinet, but given how much, given how small of a role Spike would be, I imagine, it's always possible they could be casting him late. Again, I think it's probably unlikely, but there you go. So at this point, I am leaning toward option 1, that Spike just straight up isn't in the movie, and I almost prefer that rather than recasting him. Obviously, my preference would be for him to be in the movie, period, but maybe it doesn't work with the story that they're telling. Especially when you think back to the first movie, Spike's entire purpose was just to be an early antagonist to Mario, to show Mario's place in this world, to give him the wants and desires he needed, and how we had to, see that as an audience. Whereas by the end of the movie, Mario overcame those obstacles and became the person he wanted to be. So now, narratively, Spike doesn't really serve much of a purpose, and that could be why he's not in the second movie. And my guess would be that anything having to do with Brooklyn, Spike included, is going to have a reduced presence in the second second movie. So that's the Spike news for Mario Movie 2. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this. Does it matter? Does it not matter? Am I the only Spike fan out there? Let me know. Before we fully move on, or before we wrap up this video though, two more quick things. One, there is apparently a rumor going out right now for the Switch 2, which I wasn't going to cover originally, but because I'm making this video, might as well cover it now. The rumor is that based on the job posting Nintendo posted, the Switch 2 may support Samsung's upcoming SD Express micro SD cards, which basically have a transfer rate 5 times faster, I believe, at least, than any current SD card supported by Switch, which I would think the Switch 2 would almost have to support the faster technology, especially given the massive increase in speeds we've seen for memory of all kinds. And if the Switch 2 wants to support external memory, it's going to need a faster solution than what they currently have. So not a huge surprise for me. I'll link to this in the description below if you want to check it out. Finally, if we head on over to a local website, GameXplain.com. Yes, we have a website. We don't advertise it because it's, you know, mostly just a catalog of our YouTube videos. I wanted to point out that I brought back Cool Bits. After 5 years, it is finally back. I spent a lot of time on this video, so please go check it out. I'll link it on screen right now. So go give it a watch if you can, or if you want, because I had a lot of fun making it. I hope you have a lot of fun enjoying it or watching it. And I need to know if you guys want to see more of these. So go watch a comment on the video and let me know if you want to see more Cool Bits, as I want to make them if you guys are willing to, watch them. On that note, thanks for watching, everyone. That's all the news. Let us know in the comments what you think of all of it, and we'll catch you later. Bye, everyone.